So what's going on, guys? In this video, we're going to talk about some of my fishing gear that I have and some of the differences with some of the cheaper fishing rods. So stay tuned. So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Carrasco Ranch. My name is Robert, if this is your first time tuning in. So in today's video, we're going to talk about some of the gear I use to go fishing. Mainly catfishing is what we're going to cover in this video. Sometimes people ask, what kind of string am I using? What kind of rods are you using? So I'm going to talk about all that today. And then I'm going to talk about some of the differences between some of the cheaper fishing rods versus some of the more mid-range fishing rods. So if you guys want to follow my blog, www.zenfulwarrior.com, link in description. All the fishing rods I'm going to be talking about today, along with all the, accessories for the fishing rod, will all be linked down below as well. You can check them out, read the specs on it, and purchase it if you really like them. But yeah, so go ahead and get into it. So the main difference between some of the cheaper fishing rods and some of the more mid-range ones is that the cheaper ones tend to break because they're like cheaper plastic. They're just a little bit cheaper plastic, so they tend to break a little bit faster, a little bit sooner than some of the more mid-range fishing rods. I don't ever buy high-end, super expensive fishing rods. I just don't really have the need for it for what I do. So I mainly stick to the more mid-range. Pin is what I like. I have had some of those cheaper fishing rods from like Walmart, which if you saw my other video with the orange fishing rod, catching fish out of this pond, you're going to see that the orange fishing rod, you're going to see that the drag was broken on that rod. That rod is only about a year or two old. It is a cheaper Walmart brand rod, so I didn't expect a whole lot out of it. But yes, they do break down a little bit more. With some of the cheaper fishing rods, some of the handles end up going out. Some of the bearings end up going out. Some of the eyes start to go missing. Just little odds and ends with some of the cheaper rods. And again, depending on how cheap they are, sometimes they will break in half as well because they're just cheaper material. But I'll give you guys quick little, note on these. So I've had these for between 8 to 10 years. I've had them for a really, really long time. I still use them today. I do keep all of these rods covered and, try to keep them in as good condition as possible. But in 10 years, 8 to 10 years, I haven't really had anything wrong with them. We have, between me and my dad, we probably have like 12 to 15 of these rods. We've only ever had one break, and that's because it got a big hold of a big stump or something, and we ended up just freaking yanking it and ended up breaking. But that's been it out of 12 rods in about 10 years, more or less. These little pads here, these things just help keep some dust out of there. They do have a little pouch and all that good stuff. They're just like a little neoprene pouch that just kind of keeps dust off of the rod. But yeah, so what I mainly stick to are the 7000s, Pin Pursuits. Pin Pursuits are the rods I've had the longest. Pin Fierce is the next rods I started getting into. I'll show you guys right now the difference between a Pin Pursuit and a Pin Fierce. I may need to step back for the camera to see it, to capture everything. But this is a Pin Pursuit. I've had these for a little longer. The Pin Fierces I've had for, I don't know, probably about 5 years or so. About half the time is this one. But still really good rods. Both are really, really good. I'll take off the cover so you guys can see it, to see the difference here. These are the large to extra large covers, I believe. If you buy anything smaller, they won't fit on these 7000s. And we do have 8000 rods as well, or 8000 reels. This one, yeah, this is an 8000 on a Pin Fierce. This is a 7000 on a Pin Pursuit. Main difference between these, one is color, a little bit heavier metal on the Fierces. If I really, really had to pick and choose, I guess they do glide a little bit better, a little easier on these. So now, guys, we're going to go ahead and dive into a little bit of my setup. So I have the Fierce here with me. This is a 10-foot rod. So I like 10-foot rods, and the reason I like 10-foot rods is because we do a lot of bank fishing. So when you do a lot of bank fishing, you need to get that line sometimes a little further out there. The easiest way to do it is with a surf style type rod. If you use like a little 7-foot, 6-foot rod, it's going to be a lot harder to get it out to that distance. If you ever see those guys who compete for the longest throws they can do or whatever, they throw like 200 and something yards or meters. I'm not even sure how they measure it, but I just know that they have a big old weight. They swing that son of a gun and then they chunk it out there. but they're using some really, really long rods. So yeah, that's what we do. We use 9 or 10 foot rods. This is a 10 footer. We use 25-pound monofilament line. This one's a little bit stretchy. We have a little bit stretchy give in that line because sometimes you will get hooked up on a stump or something underwater that's just doesn't want to move. But if you have a little bit of stretchiness, you can usually kind of slowly bring it in. And you see a lot of my fishing videos, guys, sometimes I will get stuck and I'll film it and you know, I'll pull out a stick, but it comes out really, really slow, but it's because it's really stretchy line. The next thing we use 3-ounce sinkers, 3 ounces, because we're trying to get out there as far as we can. We use egg sinkers mainly. If we're fishing in current or heavy current, then we'll use some no-roll sinkers. The next thing, again, the reels themselves, 7,000 or 8,000 is usually what we go with, because we do go up to like North Texas area and fish in like Lake Tawakoni and those northern lakes where they have some really, really big catfish. So that's the reason we go with these rods, these reels, because they can pretty much, you know, hold up to those bigger fish. So a little bit more about the setup. So like I said, it's about 25-pound tests. I think on one of them I do have 20. I think it's on the Pursuit, one of the smaller Pursuits. The 9-foot Pursuit, I have a 20-pound test. On these 10-footers, I have 25. Now here I believe this is 40 or 50-pound monofilament, and that's, I make my own little leaders. The hooks, they're Kell hooks. They are size 5s and 6s. Can't even get this thing off of there, but it's a Kell hook. I'll show you guys right now what it looks like. That's what they look like. This is about a 5 or 6 right here. And we do use a barrel swivel with a little bead. These are like little rubbery, they're not plastic, they're not hard plastic, they're rubber. They're rubber beads. I'll link all this stuff down below, guys, because it's probably easier if I just link it. You guys can check them out yourself. But what it is just a bead. Like, you know, the women that make little necklaces or bracelets and stuff like that. Well, I ended up stealing some from my sister when we were younger, and using them to kind of soften the blow of the weight hitting on the swivel, because we noticed that some of the knots were getting torn up by the weight. So we ended up using them for that, because of that little experiment I did when I was a lot younger. And since then, we've kind of just focused in on buying that little soft rubber beads to protect that barrel swivel. It protects the knot, and it reduces the amount of fish you're going to lose, because sometimes when you get a bigger fish and that knot's already worn out, it'll bust the line pretty quick. Or sometimes if you get hung up and that knot's already messed up, it'll end up busting the line as well. Now, since we do fish from the bank, I do like the rear end of the fishing rod to have a longer length in the back. It just gives you a little bit more room to kind of get a good hold on there to throw it as far as you can. I'm going to show you the difference between a 9-footer and a 10-footer. So these are the, let me put them, you know, butt to butt. That's the difference between a 9-foot and a 10-foot rod. You know, big difference. I can definitely chunk this one out further than I can this one. But yeah, so that's a good tip right there. If you want to get it out there a little further, having more room to kind of grab at here at the back, you can really chunk it out there a little further. So real quickly, why overall do I like Penn rods? By the way, I'm not sponsored by Penn. This is just me. I purchased all these. I'm just talking about them. They have just been really, really reliable. And I think they're very well priced for the rod you get. There's a lot of rods out there that are a little bit more expensive than these. I've bought some from like Bass Pro, Cabela's that are more expensive than these, but haven't lasted me or haven't performed as well as some of these. Again, the tips on these are fairly bendable, so I like that. You can feel the action. You're not just like with a stiff rod that you don't feel none of the fight. You don't feel none of the game fighting. So that's the reason I like these, is because they do have some more bend in them, and you can actually feel what's going on at the end of the line. But overall, you know, I've had a lot of rods where the eyes start falling out, issues with the reel itself, issues with the handle. I've had lots of issues over the years because I used to buy cheaper rods. since we started buying these, those issues have gone away. Like I said, I've only had one rod where any issue came up and it broke, and that's been in 8 to 10 years that we've had these types of rods. The newer rods that we've gotten into are the pin Wraths, I believe. They're the blue pins. They're a little bit on the lower end compared to some of these other ones. We've only had that one for about 2 or 3 years. We have one of those. No issues so far. Again, it's another pin, but it is a lower end pin, so no issues so far. But yeah, these perform really, really well. Like I said, they have a good grip on them. I'm able to throw them very, very well. And they're just workhorses, man. They work no matter what. They just get the job done. They look nice as well. Aesthetics isn't really too important for me, but I do like how they look. I think they look nice. They just have a nice little finish to them. Let me know down in the comments, guys, what brand or what type of rod is your favorite. Let me know down in the comments. So real quickly, I didn't talk about the price, but the price point for these, for the Wraths, which are the newer ones, the blue ones that they have, they're usually a little cheaper, usually around the $70, $75 range, depending on the size of the reel you get. And then for like the Fierces and some of the Pursuits, they go all the way up to about $150, again, depending on the reel size, and if you're already going to get it spooled, all that's going to be extra for you. But yeah, and the size of the rod, of course. That's going to vary on the price. But yeah, anywhere between 75 and 150 is more or less what I paid for these rods. Yeah. Appreciate you guys watching, guys. Until next time, be careful, be good, take care, and God bless. See you guys later. Bye-bye.